Hi, I'm Dalai.
Hi, I'm Deepthi.
This is my mom,
This is my daughter,
and this is the Copacetic podcast,
the Copacetic podcast.
where we talk about
Real
real
talk.
stuff. Oh,
What did you say?
real stuff. That's the intro. I like that. I want to read you a set of symptoms, and I want to hear what comes up for you in response to them. A strong sense of responsibility, feeling a need for control, carrying a heavy weight of parental expectations, perfectionism, struggling with same age relationships, platonic or otherwise, resentment towards family, parents, or siblings, always putting others before themselves, people pleasing, sometimes anxiety, sometimes depression, and the extreme symptoms would be constant guilt, burnout, and low self esteem.
What are you talking about?
What? But I'm asking you, what does that sound like to you?
A list?
Like those symptoms, what do they sound like?
What do they sound like?
Yeah, like what is your,
Symptoms?
as in that laundry list of experiences, feelings, whatever, however you'd like to define them. What does it sound like to you?
Subject headers for each 1 hour therapy session?
Interesting. Well, those are the most common symptoms of what is now popularly known as the eldest daughter syndrome,
Oh.
which is now quite a hot topic on the internet.
Mm.
And I thought it would be an interesting way to kick off our series of discussions, because I am your eldest daughter and
I'm
you
an eldest
are,
daughter.
yeah,
Yeah.
we both have younger brothers.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, and I think we've had in our eldest daughterhood, we've had quite different experiences
Mhm.
of it. So,
Mhm.
I think what's interesting while I was researching, I feel like I start so many episodes. No, we didn't film chronologically. That's why I'm saying I start so many episodes. Um, I feel like I say that a lot. Like, I found something interesting while I was researching, and I just wanted to share with the class. But it was interesting that a lot of the research and the conjecture around the eldest daughter syndrome, a lot of the sample sizes and a lot of the test subjects were from the Western world and from the
Mhm.
United States specifically. Um, so there is also that caveat while we're discussing these these hot topics.
Because ain't nobody got time to be looking into that kind of stuff around these year parts. We're all too busy just like making it through the day
Just
to
being,
like find some like niche of human experience and be like, let's do a study about this and then make it a whole thing and then a whole syndrome and then this,
or
and it's tagged with something and it becomes a thing.
or
Yeah,
we already did that thousands of years ago.
possibly. Yeah. That's
That's
why we have
also,
names for all our relatives, don't we? We have names for all our relatives.
what do we have a name?
Titles for all. Didi.
Oh yeah,
Didi's elder
always
sister.
elder sister.
And
Yeah.
then,
What do you
yeah.
call a younger sister? You don't.
Mm.
Like, you don't have a specific title.
In in Nepali we do.
What is it?
Baini.
Oh,
Mm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't need to know that.
I'm
I didn't
not
have a younger
sure
sister.
if there must be something in
I know
Hindi
older
or whatever.
brother in Nepali, but also I'm sure in other
Yeah.
languages is Dada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, no.
Bhaiya is brother,
Yeah.
you
Bhai
know,
Saab.
Behna, Bhai Saab is brother,
But
Behna
isn't
is
Bhai Saab
sister.
older brother?
Yeah, but Bhai Saab is also used for anybody, you know,
Sure, because
when you're speaking with
all Indians
everybody.
are our brothers and
Yeah,
sisters.
when you're speaking with anyone, I for the longest time tended to say Bhai Saab to like
Same.
taxi,
Yeah.
rickshaw, shop, everybody, anybody I spoke
Unknown
to.
if you didn't know someone's
Yeah, Bhai
name.
Saab.
Yeah.
But then in Bombay, I heard a lot of boss
Oh yeah.
Everybody's called boss. Everyone calls
Yeah.
everyone boss. So,
Yeah, that's true.
but I don't think I ever got into using boss. But um,
I got my first auntie last year.
oh,
It rocked my world. I wasn't
yeah,
ready for it.
yeah. Auntiedom is a whole other thing. Um, but again, that's also, I mean, it's a Victorian hangover, right? It's a Victorian,
Auntie.
of course, auntie's a Victorian hangover leftover. Who calls anyone auntie
Yeah,
here?
but I
It
think
was
like
because of that.
everything that happens in India, we've subsumed it and fully
Yeah.
subsumed. Is
So
that
like
the right word?
everyone,
Yeah.
no,
Consumed.
uh, I can't remember the name for it, but yeah, taken it
What is
and
subsumed?
subsumed is put, taken and put under or taken over. Yeah,
Yeah.
could be,
Yeah.
could be.
Made
I'm
it
not
your
sure if that's the
uh,
word, the right word, but
vocabulary with Deepti and
appropriated
Delay.
vocabulary with Deepti and Dala, appropriated it. Um,
Reclaimed. No.
no,
No,
reclaimed would
reclaimed
be
is
something that
it's
belonged to
already
you already
yours.
and then
Yeah.
you take it over. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's names for all our relatives. Like all the people in our lives have names, which is really nice. Elder sisters, yeah, Didi. Until I was much older, I called all my female cousins older than me Didi. That
Mm,
their name and Didi
mm,
in our family for the
mm,
longest time, and I was called Didi by two of my younger cousins,
mm.
three
Or
of my
D.
younger
I feel
cousins.
like D, like an abbreviation
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
that's just in the speaking. When
Yeah.
the Deep Didi, then because nobody had like it just became Deep
Yeah.
Didi, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah,
I think there are two cousins of mine who are older, two girls in our family. And I think I even now, even when I'm messaging them, even though it's not necessarily part of our daily lives, not that we speak to each other so much, but I do definitely always reference them as D.
yeah,
Like even in my typing, I'll always say
yeah,
their name D.
yeah. It's nice,
Yeah.
no,
How
the
much
belonging.
I tried to get my younger brother to call me Nini. I
Yeah,
feel like I really tried,
yeah.
but it didn't
That's that
happen.
whole thing that I don't know when or if we'll discuss it, but just the irony of, you know, growing up like we did, my brother and I, who also called me Deepti Didi for the longest time.
I think still,
Sometimes,
yeah.
yeah, sometimes he does. Or yeah, most of the time he still
Yeah.
does. Um, and you know, speaking Hindi, wherever we were, my dad at
Mm,
home always spoke Hindi to us.
mm,
And then being here,
mhm,
since I've been here and raising my family here, and all of us speak English at home. It's like a wild thing,
mhm.
wild, wild one. It's also, yeah. I
What?
mean, that's not what this
Yeah.
um,
We'll get into that at
this
another
episode
time.
is about. But yeah, quite an irony. Yeah.
But so one thing that pops up a lot in discussion about being an eldest daughter is that there's some sort of belief that from the people who are exploring this as a syndrome, as well as people who have been eldest daughters, they have this kind of belief that they missed out on some key childhood experiences. Now, I, as an eldest daughter, albeit,
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 that's how I say it, but you can say albeit. There's no correct pronunciation of
no, I
anything.
was repeating it because I've never said albeit. I know it's albeit. It just came out as
Yeah.
albeit.
But it can be that
Um,
too. There is no correct
that's
pronunciation
true.
of anything, by the
That's true.
way. Say it the way you want to and the way it rolls off your tongue and what feels comfortable. Don't let anyone tell you different. Even
Especially
though
if
I
it's
might correct her.
especially
But
if it's not your native tongue. You can do whatever you want with it. It's the
yeah,
colonizer's
do
language.
anything you want with English. It's not even the colonizer's language anymore. It may have been at one time, but it belongs to all of us now. It's kind of become the universal
It
language.
has, but
So
I'm saying do whatever you want with it
yeah,
because it was imposed upon you. It wasn't
do
necessarily
what you
what,
want
yeah.
with any pronunciation of anything. Say it the way you want.
And
Yeah.
that's all for no, I'm kidding. Um
That's all for the eldest daughter episode.
um so I'm saying for me, my response to the this idea of having missed out on these key childhood experiences, I, albeit being an eldest daughter who became one after having like a full
Oh
childhood,
yeah,
like
you
I
had
had
your
my
full
whole,
first phase, 0 to
yeah.
7. You were a single child.
Some people still
Yeah.
say I give off only child energy
Yeah.
instead of older sibling energy, and I think that has to do with the fact that I was an only child for
Yes,
so
you were for
long.
your first phase of development at
Yeah,
0 to 7
yeah, and
years.
almost all the way up till, no, till 8.
Yeah, so 0
Yeah,
to 7 to
and then
8. Yeah,
beyond
you
even.
had, he came 8.5 years later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for me, I would disagree. I don't think I missed out on, like, I would never ever look back at my childhood or speak to anybody else about their childhoods and ever feel like I missed out on childhood experiences. I think even once I had a younger sibling,
Mm.
it I, I of course felt there was a responsibility, and I did feel there was a shift in dynamics in the household and all of that. But I would never categorize anything as having missed out.
Mm.
Like, I can't think of a single, I guess, typical childhood experience that I feel that, oh, damn, I didn't get to live out my childlike
Yeah.
experiences. But,
So I again going back to that thing about, nobody's got time to be sitting around and ruminating and picking out things about, like, it's somebody who's got too much time on their hand who would pick out something like this and say, oh, now there's an elder daughter syndrome. Like, come on,
I mean, it's not just
please.
time on your hands. It's also like people dedicated to, like,
Sure,
if that's your entire zone of interest, psychology
I
and
get it. And
developmental psychology.
I don't mean to be dismissive, but I am dismissive of some things like this. um It is, I mean, it is what it is, Their siblings are born a year apart who grow up, having the same experience, and you've got someone with you to
Yeah.
have that experience. My brother and I are 4 years apart, and um, I definitely say I don't have any memory of it, but
I
I've
thought y'all was 6 years apart.
no,
Oh.
4 years apart.
Oh.
Daddy and his sibling are 6 years
Ah,
apart. Yeah, people close to us 6 years apart.
yeah.
But I I know other siblings very closely as well who are, a year apart, a
Yeah.
year and a half apart.
Yeah.
And that's great too. Some people plan their children, plan,
So they'll just have
having their,
buddies.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you do it once, because as a parent to do that, the whole round all over again is quite something.
Yeah,
It's
you
quite
know,
something.
just have finished that phase of life
Yes.
and be like, one more time with
Yeah. So
feeling.
some people wisely also plan it that way so that they have them
Right.
back to back, and then you just get through all the phases,
Together.
and then you've got, very close buddies who
Yeah.
grow up together.
I feel like
Um
even 4 years is not that far apart. You're
Definitely.
still such a baby when
I feel
you.
like my brother and I are, for the longest time in our lives, I, he is the closest person to me. He was the closest person to me. He is the closest person to me. Many things change when you have your own family, you get married, and we live across the world from each other.
Mhm.
But for the better part of my life, that was my best friend, my best buddy, the closest person to me, the one I confided everything, and the one I ran to with everything, the one I protected like fiercely with everything I have. Um, and then also coming from, as I referred to myself, including in the first script I wrote, kind of like a dysfunctional Punjabi family. That was like the tagline of the first script I wrote, is
Yeah.
about the story about our family, a our dysfunctional Punjabi family, because there was a divorce, and because my dad was remarried the number of times he was, we called him the Elizabeth Taylor of Punjabi men. My dad was married 5 times in total. I hear people say that women thought he was a handsome man and all of that. So we had quite an adventurous life. But yeah, I call it my dysfunctional Punjabi family. And like I said, that was my first script that I ever wrote about growing up with my dad.
In what, like 2007, you wrote that?
Uh,
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was what was selected for the NFDC
NFTC.
Binger Lab. Yeah.
Yeah.
Development lab.
Mm.
uh Dark comedy. Dark comedy, because what else would it be? What else would I write,
How else can
really?
you look at life?
How else can you look at life?
Mm.
um so because of that as well, I think my brother and I were really, really close, because in all these changing, moving. We'd be dropped from Montreal to here to there to Oklahoma. Like, we were just all over the place because of my dad's work. And he and I were literally the closest people to each other, because you'd be in all these new environment and new situations, and that was your familiar, that your closest, your familiar, your family, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Basically your family. So I never thought about this eldest daughter syndrome. I didn't think of it as a syndrome. It just is. I don't know any different,
I
so
say
I can't
syndrome
say also.
facetiously as well. Like, I
Ah,
don't think it's necessarily, I don't think it's categorized as some sort of like illness or disorder or anything. I
yeah.
think it's just that
Just that
so many
it's a
eldest
club.
daughters across cultures, across the world, very different experiences. There are so many
Yeah,
commonalities,
yeah.
you know?
In my mom's family, her eldest sister, my Masi,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hugely respected,
Mm-hmm.
hugely, like the eldest in the family, is always the one
Is this
that's,
Aji Nani?
yeah, is
Mm.
always the one who's hugely respected, unless they do something radical to like destroy their position in the family, which also can happen.
Mm.
But she was very much, and from what I hear about their growing up, she was kind of like little mama to them.
So that's a
Yeah,
big
that's
thing.
the thing that I think comes into play,
Yeah,
is that there is a kind of automatic role in the family that's assigned to you,
yeah,
because you're obviously elder and
yeah.
have it together, and so your parents
Allegedly.
rely on you to lie allegedly.
No, no, as in like you're saying have it together.
Well, have it together in terms of like the dailies.
Sure.
You can stand on your 2 feet, you
Yeah,
know how to open and close the door, answer the phone,
yeah.
not let strangers into the
You can make
house,
some toast.
make some toast for your little brother or
Yeah,
sister, like all of
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
So I think when you have working parents, or like in my condition, in my situation, or a dad who was out at work for most of the day, we were, it was my brother and me. I'd drop him to school and
yeah,
pick him up from school. We'd get home, grocery, whatever. It was
yeah,
all us.
yeah,
It was me and him. So because I
yeah.
was the older one, it was obviously I was doing most of the stuff. And from what I hear my mom say about her family and my dad say about his
Because
family,
he has an
he
older
had
sister.
he had an eldest sister too,
Mm,
my buaji.
mm.
They are pretty much like little mamas to their younger siblings. They become like little mamas.
And I
In
think it's a shared. I don't think it across the board, and I definitely think there are some discrepancies when it's an older brother as opposed to an older sister. But I do think that older siblings tend to take up the mantle of
Sure,
vague third parent in some way
yeah,
or the other, and I think that's, I don't think there's any issue with that
family,
necessarily. It's
yeah,
family, everybody's holding their own. I
yeah.
think the bit that comes up in some discussions sometimes, and it's in the specific ways that in dual parent households where there's two, um in case you didn't know what dual meant, just to clarify,
What do you mean dual parent households?
as in not a single parent
Ah,
household.
okay. Oh, I didn't
um
know that was a thing.
Yeah, because
Oh,
it's so much more common now
ah,
to have, like, at a certain point of time it was like wild to have a single parent, and like
yeah,
now it's much more run of the
yeah.
mill.
Mm.
And so in dual parent households, an oldest child might become the third adult, aware of parents' personal matters and often a mediator,
Mm.
which is where, to me,
Mm.
that's the bit to me that I feel like I find a bit of issue with. Not,
Well,
again,
the,
shit happens, life goes on, everything is part and parcel of being in a family,
yeah,
and everybody comes with their destiny. But I do think in that sense, looking to, no matter what age the child is, but I think often when the child is quite young, looking to them as some sort of equal, that's where it gets a bit hairy,
yeah.
I think.
So that's where my telling in my script of my dysfunctional Punjabi family household comes from, is that I've witnessed that a lot,
Yeah.
where including in my own
Mm-hmm.
experience, where there's trouble in paradise between the parents, you're often the one in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
trying to stop it, or trying to heal, calm everyone down.
Yeah.
And I think for me, a lot of it came out of protecting my brother,
Yeah,
right?
of
So it was
course.
my little brother, and always making sure that,
Yeah.
like, calm everything down so that my little brother didn't get
And also this
the.
desire to fix it, like
Of
somehow
course, of
feeling because
course,
you've been empowered.
of course.
You've been empowered by your parents to feel like an adult
Yeah,
before you are an adult.
yeah,
And then because of that thinking, I have the capacity to damage control everything,
yeah.
you know?
So again, the dysfunctional Punjabi family household comes from this experience where I also believe mediation between two adults should not be left to the child,
Oh,
eldest
yeah.
daughter or whoever else.
Yeah.
It should not be. But
It often
it
is.
often is, and it's often hard to stop or change, or, who protects the eldest daughter? Who protects the eldest daughter?
Let me tell
Because,
you, she
yeah,
does herself.
yeah. um and that role, so there you go. I think this whole thing around eldest daughter also ends up becoming where you turn out to be the caregiver, the caretaker, the one who is always solving. Out in the world as an
Definitely.
adult yourself, you
Definitely.
become the one who's always jumping to solve things,
Yeah.
always taking responsibility for when things going wrong, to be
Yeah.
going in there and making sure it all goes right.
Yeah.
And then, that's in the healthy part of the spectrum. The dysfunctional Punjabi family part of the spectrum goes into that end of things, where a child can't be a mediator between two adults, and you should stay conscious to that. As parents, stay conscious to not making them that. You can't be discussing your adult issues and problems with your children, but that is often what happens because the eldest daughter is the eldest, and that's who's the closest to you.
Also, I think it comes from a place of not necessarily wanting to talk about
Your
private family
Yeah,
matters with
outside
anybody
in the
else.
world,
Yeah.
like we're right now doing to the whole world on YouTube or wherever this is.
I think I'm doing a great job at alluding to things without
Yeah,
confirming or denying anything.
yeah.
But I think
But
that kind of,
it's a spectrum. Again, it's a
yeah,
spectrum. It goes from, it's healthy and it's normal to discuss things with your own family and
sure.
inside the family,
Yeah.
and then it can skew into the dysfunctional
Yeah.
Punjabi family. It's end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
where then the daughter becomes like, everybody's looking to her to be the mediator, the solver, the, like, everybody's pissed off in different rooms and you're in the middle there trying to make everything okay.
Yeah.
I will say this though, I have hardly ever, if at all, observed dads in that configuration. I've hardly ever observed a father leaning on that.
Yeah.
It's almost always the mother
Yeah.
who will lean on the eldest daughter
Yeah.
as an ally in that kind of configuration.
Yeah.
It's almost always the mother.
Yeah. I
And
would agree.
and again, your your shortcomings, dysfunctionalities, problems in your marriage, etc., etc., for a mother is with the father. That's your partnership.
Mm-hmm.
What you're discussing with the daughter is about her father.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The father and the daughter are a whole other separate relationship, and actually should not have any kind of overlap between the father and the mother and their
And of
relationship.
course, this is not taking into account, as always, extreme
Extreme
circumstances. Yeah.
circumstances, again,
Yeah.
yes, I don't mean to be
Yeah.
dismissive about extreme circumstances, but
Yeah.
on the whole, in my observation, what I've seen in my observation and my experience, from the extreme of sustaining a lot of damage, um, to the other extreme of possibly causing damage, always, whichever way, it's usually the mother and the eldest daughter where this configuration happens. It's not so much the dad doing it to the eldest
This is
daughter.
when we look at each other and then look in the camera.
And do what?
Because you're talking about like it's always the eldest daughter and the mother, and you're just like, dun dun
Yeah,
dun.
eldest daughter, eldest daughter. Yeah. and then you try and break patterns from knowing, from
Yeah.
coming from those experiences,
Yeah.
right? Coming from that experience, you try and break that pattern of the
Mm.
dysfunctional family pattern,
Mm.
um, and grow beyond it. So, like with everything, there is the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And it's always both and not
It's
either
always both
or.
and, not either or. There's great stuff that comes from being thrown into that role where you have to grow and, like, hold up and step up and
For
handle
sure.
stuff, and then you become a far more capable adult at a much
Responsible.
earlier age, responsible, all of those things.
Mm.
There are the tenuous issues in that, where sure, there were needs and things that you may have had which completely got gleaned over, thrown out the back door because you
Yeah.
were just there having to
Mm.
handle.
Yeah.
um,
And I
and
think,
then there are also the extremities where that mother confiding in the daughter, or the eldest daughter, becomes really toxic,
mm,
and then that child is never able to, the eldest daughter is never able to grow beyond that, because she's stuck in that kind of paradigm where the mother is the perpetual victim,
mm,
and your framing on life becomes that.
mm.
So there's all those extremes of it. There's
And
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I think also rolling out into the world, coming away from the family structure and coming away from your role as an eldest daughter, and like you said, not really being able to drop your default functioning in
Yes.
every other dynamic. And
Yes.
I was looking at these symptoms, and I mean, I connect quite strongly with a fair few. I don't know if you do or not, like strong sense of responsibility. I think maybe not overarchingly across the board, but towards the things I care about, and towards, you know I guess, yeah, actually a strong sense of responsibility, yeah, because you
Yeah.
feel you're responsible of
Yeah,
to keep
it
things
becomes
running.
your default position,
Yeah.
is to feel like you are responsible for what's around you, and
Yes.
I said that can be good as well.
Absolutely.
We need a heck of a lot more
Yeah,
people like that on the
for
planet,
sure.
who feel directly responsible for what's going on
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
But it can also get to an extreme where, as with everything, balance,
and it
balance,
and I
balance.
think, and when it gets to an extreme, it goes into the next one, which is feeling a need for control, which I think is a
Yes.
big, big, big
So
one, from where you
that's the toxic end of things,
definitely,
where your parents weren't parenting you, your
mm,
mother wasn't parenting you, she
mm,
was playing out all her, you know issues, problems, etc., with you as the crutch to lean on.
mm-hmm,
That's where it gets super dysfunctional.
mm-hmm,
It gets toxic, and
mm-hmm.
then that's where you go out in the world with this need for control,
Yeah,
is because you've been, again, the default position, like everything falls on you to
yeah,
fix, to sort, to do this, and then you become controlling because you're
yeah,
used to making sure everything works right, and so you're the one doing it all.
yeah.
And then and I think on that uh, dysfunctional, unhealthy skew, the need to control also comes from being in a situation
Where
where you
you
couldn't control
where
anything.
you felt out
in
of
a in a
control.
in a dysfunctional family
Yeah.
uh, context,
Configuration.
configuration, you you know couldn't control because you're a child.
Yeah,
Even being the eldest daughter, you're a
yeah,
child.
yeah,
And so you, by controlling your younger siblings, by controlling the way something is kept in the kitchen, or how the furniture is positioned, or this vase is just so, and it has to be this perfection or else,
yeah,
comes from growing up where you felt there was no control,
yeah,
because you had adults around you who were out of control
yeah.
and weren't thinking about you,
Hmm.
and making sure that the children in the family are
Yeah.
okay.
And I
And
think it often comes without realizing. It's not like it's like you would categorize those parents as inherently selfish or uncaring or unloving.
not at
It's
all,
just that somehow
not knowing.
in the living out of whatever dynamics were occurring in their lives, the focus was so much on them and their issues. No?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but that's where this whole thing comes up about breaking patterns, so it doesn't
Mm,
become family culture, right?
yeah.
um
I think also
I
a lot
think
of it comes from, again, the world having moved towards like a nuclear family structure as
Yes.
opposed to
Yes.
having a whole community of blood relatives where there was always support in some direction or
Yes,
the
and there were
other.
other adults with whom these two
Yes.
infighting adults could then get their issues resolved.
Yes.
There were the elders to
Yeah.
whom you could confide who had the wisdom of experience to tell you, hey, this is
Yeah.
not a big deal, chill out,
And also
versus the eldest daughter
and
in the
also
family.
while there may have been issues going on, those children didn't necessarily have to be even privy or around it because they could hop off, to
Yeah,
wherever,
yeah,
whenever.
yeah, grandma's house
Yeah.
or nani's house or
Yeah.
whatever it may
Yeah,
have been.
exactly. I think
Unless
also.
it was the nani who was the toxic issue in many families, which it is, the boomer generation, so
Mhm.
yeah, there's I don't know about even like this whole idea of elder sister syndrome. I mean, there may be generalizations we could put towards it, but like with everything, there are exceptions to the rules. There are a majority, minority,
Mhm.
and it's everybody's own journey.
Of
It's
course.
everybody's own journey.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
think, do you for me, the times that I ever it comes up for me is when I've caught myself in a pattern without realizing I've
Mm-hmm.
been playing it out. And it happens often when friends come to me in, when we're talking about something, or they have an issue to air, or they're just passingly mentioning something that is bothering them. So often I find myself thoughtlessly immediately just firing off solutions to
Of
them,
course. Yeah.
and they'll kind of look at me and
Yeah.
just be like, I'm not asking,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god,
Yeah, yeah,
forgive
yeah.
me,
You're just
so
you're just
please forgive me.
you're soundboarding. You're like you're
I'm
using a
just
friend as a
fixing.
sound, but you're using a
Yeah,
friend as a
they are.
soundboard, and because they are coming from
Yeah.
their experience, they're jumping to
Fix and help.
fix your problem
Yeah.
and help and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because some there's this framing about how women come to other women to soundboard and just have space to vent. And often when you're venting to a man or male friend or whatever, and you get this solution oriented response. And it's funny to me that there's almost by virtue of whatever responsibility you had to carry as an eldest daughter, there is a masculinity to your approach to
Yeah.
problem solving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also read this thing online which was quite funny, or funny, dark,
Masculinity, I would say there's a rationale and there's a logic,
which is
which is
usually
prescribed
ascribed
to
to.
men
Yeah,
normally. Yeah.
instead of holding that emotional space of
Yeah.
listening, which I
Yeah.
think we are both capable of, but the
Of
default
course.
is definitely to
Of
just be like,
course.
how do we solve it?
Yes, yes,
Like,
that's
let's
my
not dwell.
that's my brother and that's my dad, right?
Yeah.
Like immediately, like you present anything and it's like break it open, put the parts asunder, and then reassemble it. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a solution. And
Yeah. But
elder
then.
daughters tend to have that, is to tend to look at things very rationally and logically. So I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying
But then
in that
also,
masculinity.
isn't it quite funny that when I know you or I have come to each other in those emotional moments, if either of us present solutions, you're just like, I want a solution right now. I just want you to listen. So it's funny that that's what you're giving
Yeah,
out, but
yeah,
it's not what you're always looking
yeah.
for.
So I
Um,
wonder if it like I wonder now, because we're talking about it. I really don't have any interest in finding out through surveys or anything, but like I wonder if friends tend to be elder daughters. Like, would an elder daughter be friends with another elder daughter, or would you clash in your need to control and that those tendencies that come in an elder daughter?
I actually thinking about the group of girls that I grew up with who were my closest friends, and some of them remain my best friends.
Oh my god, it's true, isn't it?
Every
All my
single one
friends are
of
also
them,
the elder
except
daughter.
one, except one,
Hmm.
um, except
No, it's
one.
right. Oh my
Yeah,
God. It's true.
yeah.
All my friends are the eldest daughters of their
Yeah,
family.
and often the eldest daughter's an elder sibling to a younger brother,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there must be some sort of resonant
To
energy
the
that there's
experience
like
that makes you
draw you
seek
to
each
each
other
other.
out.
Yeah.
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 The
Yeah.
type of person you become
Yeah.
is who you're going to be and end up becoming friends
Yeah.
with.
And actually
Wow.
not even just
Interesting.
eldest daughters, but eldest siblings. I'm thinking about male friends that I have well, no, not as much, not as much. More female eldest daughters, but there's a fair, yeah, I think also just there's an understanding of responsibility, approach to life, because I mean, no hate to younger siblings out there, but I definitely know that there is a difference when I communicate with them about certain ways of being, a certain level of responsibility, how they view the world, their ideas about what is the kind of parents that they grew up with, even if it's the same parent, the kind of parents they grew up with versus the kind of parents that the older
Of
siblings would have grown
course.
up with.
Of course, because everybody is evolving and changing.
Yeah,
So the parents that I grew up with were definitely not the parents my younger brother grew up with, right?
exactly.
It's all
Yeah,
been, and same for you guys. The parents
definitely.
you grew up with is definitely not the
Yeah,
parents that
yeah,
Jay grew up with,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because your parents change across the years as well. And I think there's cause here for a younger sibling episode,
No,
because I'm sure they've got a lot to say about
they
it,
can start their
equally a
own
lot to say
podcasts.
about it,
They can do
because
their
for
own.
them also
Yeah,
there's the good, the bad, the ugly, right?
yeah,
In a lot of ways, from your position as the eldest daughter, you'd think like they had it so easy,
yeah.
but they look at you and say you had it so
No,
easy,
I
you got
don't.
to do all of these things that I don't get to do.
I
But in many
actually,
ways they get to do a lot more that you didn't, because by then parents have done it once already,
yeah,
and they're much more easy with the
chill.
second time
Yeah,
around to let them do a
yeah.
lot that you wouldn't allow your first child to, like,
I
so.
don't think the feedback, at least from my younger sibling and from what I've heard from my friends' younger siblings, has never really been, oh, you got to do so much more than I get to do. I think there's a universal agreement that the older sibling definitely had way more boundaries
Yeah,
than the younger
yeah.
siblings. I think what I've heard, the feedback I've received, is more to do with the fact that they feel unrelated to the parents often, but they feel like there's some sort of standard to live up to that you've set. And at least with my friends and I, we're all just kind of like, oh, we were just trying to get through. I don't know what standard you're talking about,
Yeah.
because at least I, and I know a lot of my friends look at their younger siblings as far more, multi hyphenate talented across the board, and that might also just be the elder daughter, like
Yeah.
elder sibling pride kind of thing
Yeah.
coming around. But I do hear that there's some sort of standard to live up to in relation to the elder sibling, which is funny because there I think I do, at least as an older sibling, as an eldest daughter, I have this standard that exists in this really strange way, because there's no one who set it. I was the first one, but there's this standard, and it has felt for my entire life unachievable. But it's the standard I hold myself to. I
Mm.
hold no one else to that standard.
Mm.
I would never be as harsh as I am to
Mm.
anyone else the way I am to myself about maybe not reaching there fast enough, or like making it to the level that I think that I should be, or doing my quote unquote best. If I know this very objectively, if somebody came up to me, my age, my circumstances, and shared, oh, I've done XYZ and I feel really bad that I haven't achieved what I think I should have achieved, or I haven't been functioning at the level that I should be functioning, I know I would immediately be like, oh my God, what are you talking about? You're doing so great. Keep going. But that self talk never, ever, ever, ever
Isn't
happens.
that with everyone? Everyone is harshest and hardest on themselves than they are on anyone outside.
Yeah, I do, I do,
Yeah,
I do think so.
I
I
think
do
so.
feel like, I mean, I met some younger siblings who think they're the bee's knees.
Yeah, I mean, this configuration specifically, I think what we're talking about seems to be a common experience everywhere. The elder daughter and a
Yeah,
younger brother
brother.
sibling.
Yeah. And
Um,
we're obviously speaking that experience because that is the only one
that's
we've
yeah,
had.
that's
Yeah.
the one we've had. And the other thing that the younger brother always tends to feel is that's their kind of go-to, right, in the
Mm-hmm.
world. That's the person that has their back, right? The
And
eldest.
you'd hope that they felt like that.
Yeah, because that's what you did for them.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, and even those relationships can get really skewed and
Mm-hmm.
weird and toxic, and I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that also
Mm-hmm.
in sister brothers that are very close, where the brother is perpetually made to feel like he owes,
Hmm.
you know, the
Oh,
elder sister. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah. There is
Oh,
also that, and that also happens in families where you're saying the elder daughter is the one who's carrying everything and doing
yeah.
everything, but then what tends to happen is when they become adults, it's the brother who ends up just perpetually in
Playing catch
owing,
up.
owing,
Hmm.
like, the sister will be, albeit elder,
Hmm.
who's reached a certain age, and because I was there for you when you were young, and
Hmm.
it seems to be like an unsaid code.
I was gonna say, is it so much that it's demanded, or is it just kind of something that happens? Because I can't imagine as an older sibling ever demanding or asking,
No,
you
you
know?
wouldn't,
Yeah.
because you come from all love, right? As
Yeah,
I do with my brother. It's just like
exactly.
all love. Like you
Yeah.
just love your baby brother forever
Yeah,
and
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
And he'll always be your baby brother, even
Yeah.
when you're like
I
grown up
mean,
adults doing your all
baby
your
and all,
own
I don't
thing.
know, but you'll be
Yeah, but for
younger.
me it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's my younger
Yeah.
brother. Baby brother, because he was a baby
I know.
growing up
I
and I
think
always had him as a baby, right?
I
So
shy
it's
away
your
from that because the skews that I've witnessed have been older sisters who are like, "Oh, that's my baby brother," and
oh
I'm
no,
like,
no,
"Oh no,
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 no!
no.
That is a grown
No,
man.
no, no,
That is a
no.
grown man
No, but it
walking
gets
there."
into the toxic space with that configuration of a younger brother and an older sister who, in a dysfunctional setup,
Mm.
was there to protect the brother so much, and then the whole grouping making that brother, when he's an adult, feel like he always forever owes,
Mm.
and having to, like, no matter what or how bizarre and untenable those demands are or whatever, it's like he's just always, you know playing catch up to that sister
As though he has
who's,
something to make up for all
yes,
their
like he
childhood
owes her.
years. Hmm.
It's like he owes her. And I've
Hmm.
seen those configurations too. I've seen
Hmm.
that happen too,
Hmm.
where, for whatever their circumstances were in those families, and I've seen this at very close quarters,
Hmm.
a super highly dysfunctional family where the sister is just constantly given a platform, supported, no matter that she brings nothing to the table,
Hmm.
no matter that she's an imposter in the
Hmm.
mix,
Hmm.
but the brother is made to constantly, you know,
Hmm.
measure up and
Hmm.
cover for the gap that occurs between what that grown woman can now
Hmm.
accomplish or not on her own,
Hmm.
because there was this whole childhood where she covered for you, or where
Yeah.
she was the target of the fighting
Right.
parents, or
Right.
whatever it may have been, the
Yeah.
circumstances.
Hmm.
And perpetually, like,
Hmm.
it's that obligatory,
Hmm.
it's almost an obligatory
Hmm.
relationship, because you don't even see a lot of love in there anymore. It's
Hmm.
just obligation, and
Hmm.
it gets real ugly. And like I said, I've seen it at very close quarters, and it's tragic.
But this
It's
is,
tragic
but
to
this is,
see.
but this would be the pinnacle and the end result of the extremities of these
Exactly. So
relationships.
it's like,
Yeah,
again, it's the
spectrum.
spectrum, the good, the
Yeah.
bad, the ugly, and
Yeah.
we all have all of them. And perpetually what you seek is the balance.
For sure.
Is you
For
seek to be
sure.
on the fulcrum where
Yeah.
you can see it, you see yourself, you
Yeah.
check yourself
Before
before
you
you
wreck
wreck
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been what's the word? Been at fault in a way and been called out by my younger brother in phases of our lives where he's just been like, you gotta let me breathe. Like,
Yeah,
you gotta stop
yeah.
telling me
Oh
what to
yeah,
do.
of course. The
And
younger brother's coming up when they grow up, and they're
yeah,
just like, step off, yo, and you're
yeah.
just like, no, I'm in control.
But
You still
not
do
even,
what I tell you,
but
but
in
step
for
off.
me, in that moment, it wasn't even, oh no, continue listening to me. It was this shocking tilting of my world where I was realizing that I had even been telling him what to
Yeah,
do. It wasn't even that I have any desire for control. I mean, you know me, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. I'm trying to be lying on a rock in the sun eating berries. Like, that's what I'm trying to do at all times,
that's what you think about
24/7.
yourself.
That's what I mean.
That's what
That's
I
like,
think about myself. That's what we all of us have an idea or an image of ourselves that we
yeah,
believe is our
yeah.
story.
But
And it's only from
through
the outside,
others.
the observing you, who can say, like, you don't remember the number of times us telling you, Delay, can you just step off, let him be? Don't tell him what to do, Delight. Don't tell him what to do.
I think we've gotten to the point where I don't. Like
Yeah. No, you don't.
I
It was a
don't.
phase.
Yeah.
It was a
It was a
phase. It
transitional
was a
moment
phase.
from him being a proper baby to him being
Sure.
more of a grown up.
Sure, sure. And it happens to all of us. It was for me also.
Yeah.
Not that my dad ever, like, my dad never mediated our relationship, my
Mhm.
brothers and mine, because my dad was too busy doing his
Yeah.
work and getting married to all these women. Um, but he never mediated our relationship. He was just there for us, and he
Right.
loved us and provided for us. And
Yeah.
he never got into like what were, my brother and I doing. And there was phases in between. My brother was a teenager and he played tennis. He's an athlete, and there'd be times in his teenage years I'd go into his room and oh boy, whoo, and he was sponsored, so he'd keep getting clothes from like Nike and the sports, whatever, new
Yeah.
rackets, new
Yeah.
clothes and socks and shoes and whatever. So he wouldn't get around to doing the laundry a lot, and I'd go into his room. And I remember one day my dad really losing it because he went into his room, and under his bed
Yeah.
was not just all kinds of sweaty tennis clothes stuffed in, tennis balls, like all his stuff, pieces of old pizza, and he loved garlic pizza. So can you imagine the ponging that was occurring from there? He's gonna kill me if he sees this since I'm
Well, no, we're
talking
not. We're
about it.
not. We're not calling him out
No,
directly.
no, but
Those who know us will know exactly who
yeah,
you're talking
yeah.
about. But
So teenage, athlete,
yeah.
and my dad just like clean your room and all of this, because it was just like it was a serious thing. And during those years I used to give my brother such a hard time, like
Yeah.
as he was coming into his, you know
But you weren't giving him
come,
a hard time. You were just
like a
messing with him.
sibling, that
Yeah.
your sister brother. And
Yeah.
because it was like my dysfunctional Punjabi family, I was growing up in a male household, my brother and my dad,
Yeah.
that's what it was us, right? My brother and my dad. So I would, that that masculinity, a little bit of the masculinity you were talking about,
Yeah.
very much there with my brother. I think there were times where I fully bullied him also,
Oh
like
no.
whacked him, and like
Oh no.
the worst, most horrible things I would do to him, which now I think were the worst, most horrible. I don't know how it affected him,
I
but
still think it's
when
not the
his
worst, most
no, it's
horrible.
like sibling stuff, but who knows? I mean, who knows? He, when his voice started cracking,
Yeah.
like he was already, boys are like so conscious of those times. Like
Yeah.
that's, as an elder sister, like a bratty elder sister, that's where you would go for. And then yeah, just as he was coming of age, like when he'd come out of the bathroom and I'd like, he'd come out, I'd whip out his towel and run through the house, and he'd be like, yeah. And the number of times where I could, like, physically move him or like push him aside or do whatever, like, because he was younger than I am, till it got to the day where I don't know what kind of argument, I don't know what was going on, and I was like, hey, you, whatever I went to do, and he grabbed my
And you
arms,
couldn't move.
and I was like, like it was like, the cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
of that sudden moment where you realize, oh man, he's bigger than I am and way stronger than I am. This phase of my life is over.
Yeah.
That was like a really funny, I mean, it was funny stuff. I don't
Of
mean to make it
course.
sound dark. It was really
No.
funny,
No, of course
because
it's
it was like
funny.
finally, like, and he was also, I could see the look on his face going, yeah, yeah, now try me, now see what you can do. And I was like, oh god,
Yeah.
you can't,
Yeah.
right? Like,
I've
he's
seen that.
become the man now, and you're, but then that phase is also beautiful and it's lovely, like your little brother who just like shoots past you and
Yeah.
becomes, way bigger than you are,
Yeah.
and is the one that's then there for
Protecting
you,
you in a
and
way.
when you're going out or doing
Yeah.
whatever, clubbing or
I've
whatever.
had my little I was never particularly physical in my
No,
bullying
no,
with
you've
my
always been
brother.
super
Um
gentle and soft, because such a big age
yeah,
difference
I think
also.
that's what it is.
Yeah, you
Like I
were
was
always carrying him
already
around and doing stuff.
exactly. I
Yeah.
don't think if there was ever, I think there were maybe one or two times where I may have like playfully done something, but it always resulted in him like flying or like just like, it was just he was too small. So I just couldn't. So my experience of that transitional phase was just this really sweet moment I remember, where I can't remember where we were, what we were doing. I just remember we were walking, and without saying anything, without it being any kind of discussion. I just saw him kind of like move around me and come onto the side of
Oh
the
yeah,
road.
yeah.
And yeah, just, and there's other moments,
It's
where
an
we'd be,
instinctive thing that men do. I've noticed this also, even
yeah,
with my brother, and I noticed it with my son as well.
yeah,
The first time that that happened, that we were just about to get into a elevator.
uh-huh,
Again, I don't remember where it was. He must
yeah,
have been 11, 12 years old.
yeah.
I don't even remember, but he was pretty much my
You
height, or probably I think he was taller than I am by the
yeah,
time he was 11,
yeah,
12. But I remember we were getting into a lift, and there were maybe about 3, 4 guys there waiting,
yeah.
and me as usual, like
Yeah, because
and
also
stuff.
like nobody's out like,
No,
yeah,
but it's an
through nothing.
instinctive thing, especially at that age, also,
Yeah,
and I remember noticing this, how he bodily put himself between me
yeah,
and the rest of the people in the elevator.
yeah,
And it's quite something to see that
yeah,
instinctive protective nature
yeah.
that comes
Also
through of
to see
men.
it from somebody you've known who was like this chubby like dumpling,
I know.
and suddenly you're
Your
like,
little
what are
baby,
you
that's
trying
what
to
I mean
do?
about the little baby
Yeah,
brother, because you're
yeah,
that's going to be your
yeah,
that that phase, that impactful phase where
yeah,
you were like the caretaker and
for sure.
holding them and carrying their
Yeah,
chubby little baby self around, and they
yeah,
too looked to you as,
yeah. The
coming to
grown up.
you as your, yeah,
Yeah, but I think
yeah.
my immediate like possibly negative response when you first said baby brother as an adult is it comes from that place of I just I feel so, I don't want to say repulsed because it's such a strong word, but I do feel quite repulsed when I see, you know older sisters, specifically older sisters, and specifically in my experience here in India with younger brothers who are full adults,
Oh yeah, no,
where
so again, that's the
it's like it's this thing of, either in their partnerships they've had a breakup with the girlfriend and they're relaying a story, and it's always about, oh, my poor little victim, and just anything in the world, it's always about, oh, my poor baby, how he struggles. And I'm just kind of, I'm so much more of the inclination where like, and it again may skew onto not the greatest, like end of the spectrum, but more often than not, my brother will come to me and be like, this, and this happened. I'd just be like, what'd you do? What'd you do? How'd you mess up though?
yeah,
Like,
of course.
because I think there's quite a strong desire to like, make sure that somebody who you care for and you love so much,
Is
and you,
reality checked
yeah, and also
all
is
around, all
is
around.
yeah, exactly, it's just not somebody who will ever feel like they can go out into the world and just rely on the fact that, oh, my older sister loves me so much that I can just do anything and she'll always think I'm amazing. It's like, no, she will always
No.
love you, but
Yeah.
she may not like the things you're
Yeah,
doing, and you should,
exactly.
rise to
So
the
that also
occasion.
is that end of the spectrum where things
Yeah,
are not, that ladla, mera
yeah.
ladla, like, nah,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
way,
yeah, I
no
think it
way.
happens a lot with mothers and sons as well, right?
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
again, that's the
yeah,
whole check yourself before you wreck yourself. You gotta
yeah,
like just reality check yourself
yeah,
all throughout life, with everything,
yeah,
with every relationship, not
for
just
sure.
with your younger siblings or your elder sister.
Yeah,
You gotta check yourself on all those
yeah.
relationships. Yeah, to
But
stay healthy.
as I do want to touch upon, like, it may not be the most fun part of it, but I want to talk about the, the extreme, like we were talking about the extreme symptoms in a dynamic with the younger brother, but just extreme symptoms, results of this role that you play in a family dynamic is, the three being super super low self-esteem, constant guilt, and burnout. And I think I never really thought about burnout so much, until
Why would
in
you have
my,
low self-esteem as an elder sister?
I don't know, I think maybe it
Is
would,
that from that study of the
yeah,
elder sister? They
yeah,
said low
yeah,
self-esteem.
in the extreme, like if
Wow.
you really really had, if you've been an eldest daughter in a super super extreme circumstance, you can have really really low
But I
self-esteem.
don't think that's specific to the elder sister then. Then if it's like a
Yeah,
despfunctional setup,
I think a
if
lot
it's
of
the
people come
family is
away
not
from
like
it.
reality checked, I think everyone's gonna come out with
Yeah,
a
yeah,
hornbill. Look so beautiful, that couple that just, can you see it right there on the tree?
yeah.
Just flew and sat there. He's kind of moving around. You don't see it?
I don't know which tree you're looking at.
Right there. directly in there. You can see them
Oh
moving
yeah, yeah,
around.
yeah. I see it.
That's the Hornbill couple that lived there. So beautiful. Um,
Yeah, so
yeah,
everybody will come
that's not
away.
specific to the
Yeah,
elder daughter. I
yeah.
think that if you've messed up um in that way, and okay, sure, when it's the mom confiding in the eldest daughter and leaning on them and really like, confiding your adult stuff on the child or the teenager or the young adult who's just developing while you're the adult, that's a mess up, and sure, it'll cause all kinds of issues. um but on the whole, the low self-esteem thing, I don't think is specific to the eldest daughter. I think if you've not got it right as parents or as a family unit, I think everyone's going to
Mm,
suffer from low
mm,
self-esteem. And one of the biggest emblematic signals of low self-esteem is what others perceive as a really high sense of
mm,
confidence.
mm, mm-hmm.
When you're perceived as being really confident and like charming and out there and all of that, it's from
Often.
my experience of having observed life and
Yeah,
seen it and read it and gone through all these modalities of therapy, counseling, this, that,
yeah.
inquiring into so many aspects of life, what I've seen on the whole is, yeah, that the low self-esteem's the biggest marker of low self-esteem for me
It's a
is what,
bodacious personality.
yes, is what people perceive
Yeah,
as confidence
yeah,
or like on it or
yeah.
whatever it may be, is usually a very clear indication or marker of a questionable sense of self.
Mm-hmm. I do
Yeah.
think for me, what I do resonate with is, and I hadn't thought about it in relation to my role in the family until I read this, but is this perpetual, resounding, reverberating feeling of guilt, and I've had it forever, like way back from being like a little teenager all the way up to now. Some of my friends joke about it and they say it's because you were raised in Goa and there was so much Catholic influence around you, so it's just the Catholic guilt. um
I
but
think it's also, I mean, I know where you're going with this, and I think it's a lot of what I had to work with
do you
as
know
well.
where I'm going with it, or are
I
you
mean,
presuming where I'm going
well,
with it?
it's a lot of what I had to work through with it also, and I think it's what carries down through the mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that toxic, relying on the female lineage,
Mm.
relying on that grouping, like pulling the females towards your side
Right,
versus the dad or the males in the family, as it were,
right.
uh, tend to manifest most heavily on the female line.
But in terms of how are you relating that to guilt
So
specifically?
guilt is very much a part of it, right? Like if your mother is constantly confiding in you about how miserable and awful she is and how she's suffered, and your
Mm.
dad
It's
is
like a
da
villain,
da da
yeah.
da, you are going to carry that guilt for her being the victimized person, right? So there's a lot of guilt around feeling sad for your mom.
Ah, because you
Yeah.
feel like you've had to abandon one parent to be able to side with another, so you feel guilty towards that?
No, you feel guilty for being you. You feel guilty for being you. The guiltiness comes, that sense of guilt is in you
Oh,
for being you,
because
because
you're a
you're
product
free
of
and you're
it.
young, and
Yeah.
your dad probably loves you very much,
Mm.
right?
Right, I hear
And then the
you.
mother, that toxic lineage usually comes from the female
Right,
line, where
right,
it's like
right.
the mother is a perpetual victim and like you
Right.
got done
Feeling
in.
guilty
And
for basically like loving and getting along with the
with
person who's
with
causing your parents so much harm
exactly,
and trauma.
exactly,
Right, okay, I hear
exactly.
you, I hear you.
Feeling guilty for loving your dad when
Mm,
he's allegedly made your mom feel so horrible. But again, your mom and your dad
that's their
are a whole
relationship.
other separate
Yeah,
relationship versus a
yeah,
dad and a daughter, or
yeah,
a daughter and a mother, or
for
a
sure,
son and a mother and
for
a son
sure.
and a daughter. And that's,
Yeah,
it's very hard to keep that separate. And
it
again, it
is.
is very much from this nuclear family unit where
Yeah,
these roles become so, like,
entangled. Yeah,
entangled
yeah,
and toxic
yeah.
at the negative end
Extreme.
of the
Yeah,
spectrum, where they should be, if it was a healthy family dynamic,
yeah.
the adults hang with the adults, you tell your problems to the
Yeah,
adults, leave the
yeah.
children alone.
It's interesting though because I feel like it's not like any guilt I've felt has been in relation to the family. It's just this feeling of guilt. Like anytime there is an option in any scenario with any feeling, any just anything, any moment, if there is a way for me to mental gymnastic my way into guilt, that's the option that
Yeah.
I'll pick.
Yeah.
Which has always been a funny one for me because I'm like, guilt is such a
But
funny,
that's what the world makes you do too.
really.
Of course. I mean, like, guilt is probably capitalism's primary mode of control.
Oh, I hear that. Where it's like, the environment's
Yeah,
falling apart. No, it's not
yeah,
the
yeah.
gigantic corporations. It's
Yeah,
you
it's
because
not
you
the
used a
250
straw.
people who fly in private jets to Davos.
No.
It's you not recycling your plastic or not using your paper straw,
Yeah.
and which is like your dent on that
Yeah.
is like so minuscule it doesn't even matter. But yeah, we've lived under capitalism for 500 years,
Yeah.
and guilt is one of its main foundational tenets, is to make you responsible for what's going on, when the powers that be and the controllers that run the show
Hmm.
are manipulating that out of you. So
Hmm.
this overall sense of guilt also exists from that.
But it's
But
like
if
you
it's a
said.
family dynamic and it exists in you, that's something to look at as
Yeah.
well. I'm sure it existed in me for the longest time as well, until I kind of calculated where it was
Hmm.
coming from and how it was coming, which is why I'm able to say, from observing, from therapy, from counseling, from reading, from understanding life so much better as you develop, as you grow and gain that kind of insight,
Hmm.
is to say that a lot of the times that specific kind of guilt in families that aren't cohesive
Hmm.
or healthy
Hmm.
comes from the female lineage.
I hear you. I hear
Yeah.
you. But like you said, I mean, in terms of sense of responsibility, guilt being a part of that in a way, um, I don't know. I'd kind of rather lean on that side than just be like, nothing is my fault and everything is amazing. you know?
No, again,
Of
balance.
course, balance. Of course,
Balance.
balance. But
Guilt is
yeah.
also an invented thing.
It's,
Guilt doesn't, like,
yeah.
the hornbill doesn't feel guilty.
Yeah.
Hornbill's just living its life.
It's also
These
because it's a
plants,
bit
they
of
have no
a,
guilt. The guilt is a human thing. It's an invented thing. It's a systemic technique for control.
for
If you feel
sure.
guilty about something, you'll little down.
And also,
You'll feel bad. You'll want to correct
yeah.
for things that you have nothing on you.
And it's also
So,
quite a,
and it's a useless
I was
thing.
just gonna say.
Entirely useless.
That's exactly what
It's
I was gonna
entirely
say. Because
useless.
guilt comes from something, or more often than not, actually, no, always, it comes from something that has passed. You're feeling guilty about something that has passed. Now, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
You're gonna sit there
and
and feel
and
guilty
like
about
what you
it.
said about your friend saying you grew up in Goa and the whole Catholicism, it very much
Yeah,
is, the
yeah,
Western European colonial 500 years, like I said,
yeah,
capitalism that we've lived under.
yeah,
Guilt is a very prevalent tool of control.
yeah.
If you can make someone feel guilty, you
Wow.
you can control them, right?
Yeah,
Because they're going to be shrunk and little
yeah,
down and feeling bad about themselves,
mm,
and then you have them.
yeah,
So guilt is also like, it's super useless.
mm,
It's a useless entirely. I mean, it's done.
yeah.
Get rid of it.
And the last bit that I want to touch upon is burnout. You know what burnout is?
Do I know what burnout is?
Yeah.
Are you asking me that? Having lived with me all your life, although I'm not burnt out
which is
at all. I got ways to go.
which is
Got it
what's
going on.
amazing for me to like have observed, is
Yeah,
just to have seen you go through all the things you've gone through and reach all sorts of like amazing highs and lows. But I've never really known you to burn out, which is
yeah.
why when I came to a place, I think maybe a year or two ago, where I really felt like I just don't like I didn't feel like I wasn't interested, in what I usually was interested in. I didn't feel passionate about things. I was just kind of like, I'm so tired. I just want to not do anything. And I was like,
Mm.
what is this? What is this feeling? And
It's
then
the drain
obviously
of being.
coming
Yeah,
upon this not the eldest daughter thing, but
yeah,
this term burnout that I'd
yeah,
never really
yeah.
heard of
Again, I
before.
don't think it's specific to the eldest daughter
No, I
position.
guess not.
I think
Yeah.
burnout, what is considered burnout, I
Yeah.
think it's for anyone, especially those who vest their sense of self and being
Hmm.
in something outside of
Which
themselves.
I think almost all of us do until we reach a point where,
Yeah.
like, as much as
Until you
you,
don't.
until you don't, as
Yeah.
much as you want to believe that that's not who you are and what you've been doing, as I didn't think of myself as somebody who placed much value in others' opinions or in anything outside in informing who I was or my value. But then I think to reach a point where you realize that you've just been running for so long chasing goals and dreams that are very much vested in as an actor, like it's
Entirely
so
vested in the
vested in the
outside.
outside
Yeah.
and others' opinions and others' approval and others' adoration and
But I don't know about that also, looking at acting as an art
as a
versus
career,
yeah,
as
yeah,
a business,
yeah.
as
So
a
as an
job.
art,
Yeah,
in the art of
yeah,
being an actor,
yeah,
the artistry of it, it doesn't require anything from the outside. You
of
imbue a
course.
character, and your art is that, and that is the self satisfaction within that.
Which I've often shared with you is not ever what I've struggled with.
Yeah,
Being in when I am working, being on a set or on a stage, less stage, very very rarely stage, but more often throughout my life being on set and being that character and playing that part is the highest, most fun, joyful experience. It's
sure.
it's the part that is
So the
functional and
burnout, so the
necessary.
burnout is not coming from the art and the
Of
artistry of
course
being an
not.
actor. It's coming from navigating with the industrialized aspect
Of
of it,
course.
where you got to get past the gatekeepers, the approvals, the monies, the income,
Yeah.
the relationships. It's
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
industrialization of it.
Yeah.
That's the heavy part and can cause burnout. And that happens to anyone in any
Yeah.
profession,
That's true.
because you're engaging a whole system,
Yeah.
and the system is what can burn you out.
Yeah. But
The
I think
system and the managers, the system managers are
yeah.
what will burn you out. The
Yeah.
gatekeepers are what will burn you out. The
Yeah.
decision makers are what will burn you out, because that is a taking thing, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's the
Yeah.
industry of
Yeah.
capital.
Yeah.
So the art of it is not what can cause burnout for anyone
But I
in any
think
creative field. It's engaging the system that orchestrates that art, or has taken over that art, has appropriated that art, and made it yet another commodified aspect of itself as a system.
yeah, but I meant that that was an aspect of it. There was also the aspect of it that I didn't feel like I could be emotionally available for anybody, and in terms of supporting or, just being there as I have been. And I know in a lot of, not a lot, because I think I've had quite balanced relationships in my life, but I felt that I couldn't be the kind of friend, and I've had this feedback sometimes of like, you're the friend that's there, that's there for you, and can you can rely on for support and emotional availability. I didn't feel like I could be that for anybody.
So, there was this at one of the older. This came out of one of the older. I can't even remember when it was. A meme that had it has this tiny, it's some famous cartoon series. I can't remember which one, but if I can find a reference, I'll share it with you, or we'll share it here, we'll
Yeah.
share it with you.
We'll
um
share with you.
yeah. It was it's like this tiny like a toddler,
Hmm.
and they're two toddlers, and they have a mask on that is like seven times
It's
their
Shel
size.
Silverstein.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like these tiny little toddlers holding up these giant masks, and they're like little scraggly haired toddlers, and these giant masks of adults, and the two masks coming face to face, and it's like these two toddlers trying to hold that all up. That's all of us.
Yeah.
That's all of us. Everyone is just holding up these giant masks, unless you've done the work to drop that mask, because what a weight off, what a
Mhm.
load off. But
Mhm.
most people, the majority of people in this system, in what we live in this world that we live in, that's it. You're like this little small soft, kind, benign, divine self, holding up this giant thing that these systems of existence right now as we live them tell you you have to be. That hornbill doesn't have a mask on. That hornbill's just flying and being itself with
Yeah.
its partner, hanging out on that
Yeah.
tree and having a great time.
Yeah.
And I hope they do forever. And I hope they have many children and babies and keep perpetuating many hornbills because they're so lovely.
And
But
I,
that's what we are.
yeah.
So I don't think it even has anything to do with the elder daughter. It's all of us. It's all of us.
So I think we conclude this inaugural episode of the Copacetic podcast by having started talking about something that boxes you in as a particular role in a family and in the world, and ending up being like, everybody's dealing with all these things, and we can choose to assign it to a
Yeah.
certain reason, or we can just realize that
And
we're
just be
all just,
free.
yeah,
Just be free. Really, just be free.
yeah.
Just be yourself. You
I
you God put you on this earth to be free and to be happy and to live in joy, not to live in fear and worry and anxiety and guilt and whatever else we come up with. Just be free. Drop the mask and just be free.
and listen to the Copacetic podcast.
And listen to the Copacetic podcast.
All right. Well,
And
thank
thanks for
you.
being with us
Yeah.
and for listening
Yeah.
to a mom and daughter having a chat. And we just thought we'd include everybody in our private
Why not?
chats.
Why not? Why not?
Like,
Okay, I'll say it. I'll say it. I'll say it.
thanks for hanging out with us on the Copacetic podcast.
Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and just
Comment a lot. We
participate.
want to hear what you want to say. Like this is a
Yes.
conversation, right?
Yeah.
So there's us, but we really want to hear what's going on out there. And I think one of the reasons we've done this, we talk about this somewhere
Much
else,
later.
thing is to find the others.
Yeah.
Is to find the others. Who else is out there who thinks and feels like we do
Yeah.
and can resonate and reach out, get in touch.
Yeah. Really
Yeah.
build a community,
Build a
truly.
community, find the others.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
Sweating bullets.
It's not, you can't even see it. Do you want to go dab?
Jab with what?
Or okay, I want to read to you of.
Don't we have to say hi? Since it's the first episode.
Hi, I'm Dalai,
Hi, I'm Deepthi.
and this is the Copacetic podcast.
The Copacetic podcast.
Is that the intro? Hi, I'm Dalai. Hi, I'm Deepthi.
Hi, I'm Deepthi. That's the hornbills that live
No,
by
it
us.
has to be like concise.
I feel like this is tilted.
Is it tilted or am I just bigger than
No,
you
no,
in
no.
the
The
frame?
angle. I'm telling you, it's tilted. Jesus. It's sloping. Yeah, I feel like it's sloping that way. I just feel like it's sloping. Sloping. No, never mind. Leave it.